welcome back. This is now a video that is going to be about the coin management system, if you will. I just finished the Bolt one. I'm going to do the C#. So we're going to have coins that you can add up. So we're just going to talk about simple ideas as far as the actual implementation of it. So having a little manager that controls it keeps track of the high score, keeps track of the current amount of coins you've picked up, and then we can have a little bit of a comparison at the end and see if you've beaten high score. We're also going to talk about a little bit of saving using your standard Unity player prefs for that. So let's get started. Let me show you the prefab of my awesome coin. There it is. It's just got an animation. I just add an animation that I did in Unity that just shows the rotation of the coin. So if we start the game, I want to try to survive long enough so you can see the rotation. There we go. They're just going to rotate, and that's all they do. That's it. So all I did on the coin itself was just use the capsule collider that comes with it, because it was originally a cylinder, and I set it to is trigger. That's it. So we're going to create a simple script that's gonna go onto the coins. So let's do that now. I'm going to create a new C# script. It's called coin. There we go. Keep it nice and simple. And because these are all prefabs, I'm just going to select one of these coins. And I'm going to assign the coin script. And this coin script, this coin script is really going to do is update the player on the value of the coin. That's it. And it's going to do the collision for the player, and it's going to do that. So it's going to do all of that. We could do this in the player, but the reason I want to do this on the coin is because I want to, if I open this up and we can talk about what we're going to be doing, we just let that open up in the background while I just quickly prepare my setup. Is I want to be able to maybe have later on, because when I'm developing, I'm thinking long term, not short term. So these coins might have different values, they might have different amounts. So I want to be able to have that. I want to be able to say we have different amounts for different coins, and some coins can be red ones with different values, gold ones, that sort of thing. So we're just setting that up here. So I'm going to remove all of this, and we're just going to create two variables, one for the coin amount. So let's start with that one. So this one's going to be a serialized field. It's going to be a integer, and we're just going to call this coin amount. And by default, I think I'm going to set something like 20. Okay, and then the next one's going to be private, and this one's going to be a game object, and it's going to be referencing the actual coin. Actually, it doesn't have to be it needs to be the name of the script that I don't have yet. Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's just call this manager for the time being. I don't have the manager just yet, so we'll have to, I probably should have gone and created the manager script first, but those are the two variables we're going to need. And at the start, we need to get a reference to the manager. So I'm going to just quickly go back to Unity and just quickly create an empty game object in the scene as soon as that happens. So Control-Shift-N allows you to create an empty. Right click on that, and I'm just going to reset it so that it's at 000. I'm going to rename this to manager, and I'm going to add a script to this for the manager. So I'm going to right click, create a new C# script. Let's call it manager. That's it for the time being. Nothing fancy. I have a lot of other stuff in here, so these are quite it's like overkill as far as what I have here. Okay, so now that I have the manager script, I can go back to my code and make a reference to it. So I'm going to call this manager because I'm calling the manager script that I just created. And on the awake, we're going to say manager is equal to, and now we're going to find an object by type. As soon as my computer wakes up, find, come on. I believe in you. I believe in you. Okay, so it might have done that little thing. Let me close it, come back to Unity, go to Preferences, go to my external tools. I'm going to switch it over. I find that this happens a little bit from time to time, where my extensions don't work, or maybe I haven't updated. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, make sure local packages is turned on, and regenerate the project file. Okay, now I'm going to try and open up that coin script again. Just let it recompile. Sorry about the vaping. My microphone probably picks up all of that. Okay, so once all the references are in place, I should just be able to type find object of type, and we're going to search for the manager and assign it to the variable I just created. That's all we need to do at the start. I just need to have a reference to the manager there. Okay, so the rest is going to happen on the Ontrigger. So we're going to do Ontrigger enter. What are we doing when we enter the trigger? First, we're going to compare it. So we're going to say if well, I have to do it the old school way. There we go. If other.compare tag is player, because I'm using Unity's standard default tag of player. So if it is the player, what I want to do is in the manager, I'm going to have a function that updates the score. So that's where we have to use the manager again. And then we're going to go dot and then whatever that is in the manager, which is currently there's nothing there. So I'm going to quickly go into the manager just for the time being and create that script, that function. So I'm going to remove all of this. Let's just create a public void. Let's call this update score or something like that. I think that should be fine. Now, I haven't done a lot of these, but we're going to actually change this from just being a standard function, and we're going to return it. We're going to put in a value in here. So it's going to be int coin amount. So what that does is it allows us to feed that amount into this function. So that's all I need now. It's called update score. So I'm going to go back into my coin, go manager dot update coin. You'll see there is an error because it requires an int amount. So that's where we put the coin amount. I'm just going to pop the coin amount in there. And we will now be able to call that function. So every time it collides with a player, it's going to tell the manager, please update 20 to the total. That's all we're going to do. So that's it for, oh wait, one more. We obviously want to destroy this object. So we're going to destroy this object after we have done that. You might want to play a particle system, like the coins disappear, dissolve, or whatever it is. I'm just simply destroying the object at this point. That's it for the coin. That is it. So now we're doing the rest of the work in the actual manager. Okay, I'm just going to switch over to my manager reference script. Okay, let's do this. Back to the code. Okay, so we have something that we need to do at the start. So at the start, we'll leave it blank for now. We don't have the UI element just yet, but we are going to be adding that. So we might as well do a serialized field, and we're going to say text. Now text doesn't show up, as you probably have noticed if you've done enough of these. You need to add the namespace of Unity Engine .ui in order for any canvas related goods to show up. So text, and we're going to call this one, let's call it UI coin text. There we go. So this is going to be the text that we use to display the amount of coins that we have. And then we need another one, which is going to be, we're going to keep this one private, and this one's going to be an int, and this one's going to be called current score. So this is going to be the current score that we have. Okay, so at the start of the game, so we're going to do at the, let's call it start. So at the start, we're going to want to do something. We're going to want to update that text. So we're going to call this UI coin text. I don't know why mine is being full of crap. UI coin text dot text is equal to, and what is it equal to? It is going to be equal to a, we're going to be doing a little bit of a formatting. So we're going to type in string dot format, and we're going to do that, hopefully, unless it's lowercase s, which would not surprise me one bit. Okay, so now if you do a format, it allows you to format. So what are we formatting, and how are we doing the formatting basically, and then what are we putting into that formatting? So if you look over here, we need to put in the type of formatting that we want to do, and then what values are going to go into this formatting. So I simply want to just have, let's call this coins, and after this we're going to put in the 2 square brackets, and the coins I think are just going to be 0, 0, 0, I think should be fine, comma, and then the variable, which is our current score. Hold on, just double checking that I've done this right. Let me just double check. That is my format. Those are my arguments. And that's my current score. Okay. Okay. I just had to remove those brackets I was thinking of later on. I was looking at the wrong part of my notes. So we're just saying this is the name that we're putting into the formatting, and that is the current score. That's going to go straight after that. So we're updating the text. And then what we want to do later on, I'm messing around with time scale. So we're going to go time.scale. Oh, this is not my day for. Okay, let me just search for it. Time scale, there we go. So time.scale is equal to 1. When we start the game, we want to reset the time scale to be, because when we pause the game, we set the time scale to be 0, and then when we come back, we want to set that time scale back. So that is what we're doing now. So let me just let it recompile a little bit and see if Unity wants to get out of its little full of crap with let me just give me a second. I just want to check what version of Visual Studio Code support do I have inside here. Okay, where were we? Sorry, my dog needed some love and I had to pause the video. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, sorry, I just need to do that. We are going to actually update the score. So now that we have the current score and we've got the UI text to display that, what we're going to do is say, okay, every time we go into this function, we are going to say the current score is plus equals to the coin amount. There we go. Let's try that again. There we go. So plus equals means take this amount and add that amount. It's the same thing as going equals, and we can go current score plus that. So what I was doing is exactly the same as doing this, but it's just a lot less typing, and me being the kind of lazy person that I am, I prefer to type less. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to update the UI after this. So I'm going to grab this line here again, duplicate it, and move it down here. So every time we update the score, we want to update the UI. And then after that, we are going to want to do a comparison. So we don't have a variable here. So I want to compare to a variable that I've saved. So we're going to have a saved high score variable, and I want to make sure that that variable, if the value matches, if that makes any sense. So we're going to, because we're using player prefs, we're going to do that in one of two ways. Let me just recompile this and we can test it so far to see how it works, because we need to do some UI design here. So we have the script on the manager. It needs a reference to a text. So we're going to simply just right click, add a new canvas. And in the canvas, I'm going to change it to scale with screen size, make it 1920 by 1080, which is your standard HD resolution. We're going to go to UI. I'm going to choose text. The reason I'm not using Text Mesh Pro, if you're wondering, is because Text Mesh Pro and Bolt don't like each other just very much right now. So I'm using what works both across C# and Bolt. Okay, I'm going to change the origin of the score to somewhere at the top over here. And then I'm just going to scale it up and change the color because we can't read a damn thing. So in order to scale it up without scaling up the holding shape, I'm just going to say let overflow happen on both horizontal and vertical, and then I'm just going to scale this text up, and let's just see if we can see it. There it is. It's really bad. I'm going to pick this color here just to drop it in there, and then I'm just going to offset it by like, I guess 150 and maybe minus 80 down. So that's the text for our holding text. I'm going to put 0 in there just for the time being, and I'm going to just change it from bold to italic. Let's rename this text to coin text, I guess. Let's call it coin coin text is fine. And I'm going to parent that to the manager just to keep things nice and neat. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to grab the text and assign it there, and let's see what happens when we start the game. We should have something that says coins 0 in this case. Okay. Oh wait, it's not going to be adding because we're not actually. Are you tagged this player? You are tagged this player. Why are we not colliding with that object? Please give me a second to figure out that. Coin. I'm going to put a debug log in here just to double check something. Over here, when we go in here, I'm just going to log out. So you got me. There we go. Let's just see if that actually gets called. And I want to see if everything is fine. It's probably something weird again because of the way I've been typing everything out. Okay, let's see. Okay, I was able to get the first one, but it also didn't update my text at the top. So that's another thing I need to double check. I want to see why it didn't update my text and why only the first. Oh wait, I didn't apply the prefab. Let's try that again. So when working with prefabs, just don't do what I just did. Make sure to apply prefabs as you're doing them. There we go. Okay, so they're definitely working. The problem is that the text is not updating, and it's very possibly that I've done this wrong on the manager. Just read this again. The format and then the argument. Okay, so the format and then the arguments. So we can go. Let's try this. Let's see. Format and the argument. Let's go 2 dots. 2 these, and let's go 1, 2, 3. Let's see. That should, and we're probably going to want to copy that down to this one at the bottom here. Yeah, because I still do need to tell it how it should format the actual values, the numbers. Okay, I think this should work. I hope. There we go. 0, 20, 40. Okay, there we go. So that's working, and we've now got the score showing up. So we need to double check a few things. Let me delete this. This was from a previous project. I need to go in and say, okay, cool. Have I got the high score? Haven't I got the high score? Now I want to do this every time I go through this so that I'm recording the high score. So we're going to do an if statement here. So if, and we're going to check if the current score is greater, not equal to. You just want it to be if it's greater than what. Now this is where it gets interesting. We have to essentially create a high score to reference. So we're going to go and do a layer press dot get float, or get int in this case, and we're going to create this. So the way this works is we need to get the key value that we're calling. So we're going to give this a save. Let's call this saved high score. That is the name that I'm giving, and I have to remember this name. This is the name I'm giving for when I save. So if the current score is greater than the saved high score, in this case, saved high score has got 0 at the moment, then we're going to go in here, if it's true, and we're going to say, sweet, let's make the player prefs dot set int, and we're going to put this as the current score. Now I just need to grab this name because I don't feel like typing it out again. There we go. and that'll become the new high score. That is all we're doing there. So we can save the high score, so we can reference the high score at a later stage. We're going to be using this high score when we go to the pause screen, so that we've got all of this stuff and we've done all of that, so we're looking good as far as that goes. So now we need to go and do something when we actually... I'm interested to see if we're going to get a null reference exception. So let's test this actually. I do want to see if we get an error from that if statement, because the moment we go over one of these we should get an error. Or no, we did not get an error. Nice. Okay, so that's working. So let's go and create this really quick and nasty pause screen. So I'm going to rename this first canvas to in-game HUD. I'm going to create a new UI with just add a panel, and we're going to call this one end screen menu. Let's call it end screen menu. We're just going to go into our 2D mode. Now this panel is taking up the entire screen, and I really just don't want it to, so I'm going to align it to the center, and I'm going to change the resolution to something like 800 across by 600 in height. No, a little bit more. 700 in height, I think is good. Change the color because the panel has got opacity, so I'm going to just mess around with these colors a little bit. I'm going to choose something that's not completely disgusting, which I'm already making it. There we go. This is going to be it. This is going to be my panel, my background. Okay, so I'm going to add two texts, one for the high score, one for my score that I got, and then two buttons, one to retry and one to go back to the main menu. So that's what we're going to be creating here. So remember, in the canvas, whatever's at the top of the list of in your canvas will draw at the back, and then whatever's at the bottom will draw in the front. But you'll see it when we do it. I'll do it. Okay, so I'm going to add a text here, and this one's going to be, let's call this high score text. It's really small, so I'm going to center it to the middle and to the center. I'm going to scale it up by allowing there to be horizontal overflow. I don't want, but I do want to truncate it vertically. Actually, I want it to overflow vertically as well. Now we're going to scale this up. There we go. So we're going to choose a reasonable scale. So this one's going to, I'm going to type in high score here just to see how much I have to, and let's call this 0, 0, 0. Okay, so I need to go and change that holding shape. So I'm going to grab this holding shape, just move it to the side till I get what I want, which is something along the lines of like that. And then make it 0 in the X to make sure it's centered again. And I'm just going to move this up. This is going to be our high score, and I'm going to make that bold and italic, let's just say. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm just going to duplicate this text and call this one, let's call this player score text. So this is the player score. We're going to move this down, and we're not going to have, we're just going to have something that resembles this. So we can also make this a little bit bigger so we can see our score in relation to the high score. So let's make this like 180. There we go. And then the last thing I want to do, I'm going to add this separately so I can show you what I mean. I'm going to add a button. Again, you can design the buttons any way you want. Notice how the button's in the front, but the moment I drag the button above the panel, it goes behind. So from the top to the bottom is from back to front. So just always be aware of that. Okay, I'm going to move this button down here, and I'm going to put them like, I think, side to side. So I'm going to first start by scaling up this button and kind of moving it off to the side here. You can have no text or have an image. That is up to you. There is no reason it needs to be text, especially if you're trying to mimic a mobile type game, because mobile games use more, it's going to be hard to read on smaller screens, so they rely heavily on like really nice iconography and like designs for their buttons. So this button is going to be my retry button, I guess. I'm just going to call this, retype this and call it retry and scale it up. Something like that. And this one won't be italic. It'll just be italic. There we go. Retry. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate this button and move it by the same amount in the X, but this time positive values, 200, so it's perfectly symmetrical from the X axis, on the X. and let's call this one menu, and let's change the text to say the same thing, menu. Okay, so I think that's pretty much our pause screen. Again, nothing fancy. So by default, we are not going to want this to be active. We want this to be off. We're going to turn it on when we need to. So we're going to turn that off, go back to our manager, and let's continue writing the code. So what happens when we actually hit something? We're going to create a function in here called, and let's call it public void, let's call it enable end screen menu. Enable end screen menu. There we go. So this is what we're going to call from the player side. So when the player hits something, we're going to call this function and enable the end screen. So what are we going to do here? We're going to update the player's text. So we need to have reference to all of these. So I'm going to duplicate this for the high score and for the player text. So this one's going to be the UI player score. And this one is going to be the UI high score. And we're going to use them down here. So I'm adding variables as we need. So over here, we're going to say, okay, sweet. Let's grab that UI player score. And we're going to say, what is the player score? It is equal to, so we're going to go text is equal to, and we're going to say it is equal to, in this case, I just want to say it's equal directly to the current score. Dot, remember, you need to convert it to string. So it's converting from an integer to a string. And after that, we are going to also update the UI for the high score. Dot text is equal to, and this time we're going to be doing a little bit of formatting. So we're going to do the formatting we did up here. So we're going to go string dot format, and we're going to say, what are we formatting it as? We're going to go quotations. We're going to go high score. And in here, we're going to go round bracket, curly bracket, and I'm just going to put in 3 zeros just to be safe. And then after that, we're going to go comma, and what is the high score we're putting in? That is going to be the player press dot get flow int, and we're going to go round brackets, quotes, and then this one's going to be whatever this is. High score there. Okay, so the only time you don't have to do a toString is if you're combining already, like you went and said current score plus and then something that, then it would convert it automatically. Or when you're using a string format like this, it converts whatever the variable, which this is the variable, and this is the way I want to format it. I'm saying please format it with the word high score, then the value. That's what the curly braces are there for. Whatever the value you want to fit, whatever this variable is, will go in here. Nice. Okay, so next step is to, once we've updated the score and the high score, we want to turn the UI on. We do not have a reference for that. Let's do that. I'm going to make it another serialized field. This one's going to be a game object, and we're going to call this in-game menu. In-game end menu. There we go. Something like that. There we go. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to say dot set active and then true, like that. So we're just turning it on. So we can suss this out, see if it works, see if the saving is working. So we can try this out as it stands to see what happens. We're going to wait for it to compile. We'll have the awesome bolt window pop up to tell us that it has been compiled. There we go. But we just need to assign all the goodies that we need here. So we need to go to our manager and go and grab open up our endgame panel and just grab all the stuff we need. So we need the UI player score. So the player score, we need the high score, and we need the actual game object that we're trying to turn on. Okay, let's see what happens when we go. Oh, of course. We have not actually called this function. So now we need to go to the player. The player has this little script that says on game end collision. We're going to open that up. And we're just going to go in here, and just above this we're going to make a private variable, again like we did in the coin, to the manager. We're going to call this manager, and on the awake I'm going to grab the manager, say manager, you are equal to find, I think it's like this, find object of type manager, like that should be it. If you don't want to do it, I will type it out for you. Okay, so this will get the manager, and then right in here, right when we collide with the actual obstacle, we're going to say that is correct, that is the obstacle. We're going to remove this line of code because we're going to do that somewhere else. So this is where we put, you do what you want to do when the level ends, like I said there. So we're now going to say dot, and we're going to send an event to the end, enable endgame screen menu. There we go. So we're going to call that when we collide with something. Okay, let's try that out. We're almost there. We're almost there. We just need to make sure everything saves. So I'm going to hit this one to see if we get the... There we go. Current high score is 80. So I'm going to see if I can beat that. So when we hit the retry, we want to restart the game. When we click the menu, we want to go out of that. But notice how the game is technically still moving. I can move around in the background. And now I've got a new high score. So what we want to do is, if you ever want to know, you can do this in code, but you can also do it inside of your... Where is it? I will find it for you. There we go. Under edit, clear all player prefs. If I do that, I'm going to clear any saved data that I've got in the game. You can do that via code. So I just wanted to show you that this works. So when I hit this first one, I should have 0. There we go. If I keep collecting these and I hit the next one, there we go. I have a new high score. So that is working. So I'm going to clear this out one more time. And now we're going to do something about this whole movement situation. So we're going to go back to the code, and in here, not here, we can close that, we can close the coin. We're going to use this time scale. I'm going to duplicate that, move it down here, and set the time scale of the game to 0. So we can't move anything, everything will stop. So we can see that right away. It's the quickest thing to see. You'll see the coins no longer rotate, the player no longer has any kind of input, simply because we have set the time scale to 0. So if I hit this first object, there we go, nothing is rotating. So now we need to activate these buttons. So there's a few different ways. I'm going to do it the easiest way possible. So we're going to go to the manager, and in the manager itself we are going to create 2 functions. They both need to be public, void, and this one's going to be, I'm going to call it let's try again. There we go. Let's get funny with the naming of these functions. So let's try again is going to be the retry, and the other one's going to be public void not a chance in hell, which is going to send us back to the menu. Okay, so we have our, I'm going to put a debug log here, and this one's going to say on my way back to menu. So that's what that one's going to do. And this one here, we're going to simply do the code that we had initially in the player. So we're going to go and say, we're going to reload the scene when we click this button. So at the top here, remember when you're using management stuff, you have to go Unity engine .scene management, just allow for us to manage our scenes. And down here, we're going to go scene manager .load scene. And in here, what scene do we want to do? We're going to go scene manager .get active scene, and the active scene is going to require like 2 round brackets .build index. So we're just grabbing the current level that's open, and we're just loading that back in. So that's all we're doing there. That's it. So we're pretty much at the end of the line as far as this video. We just need to make sure everything works and we can test everything. I won't be doing a main menu. I've done quite a few on my channel, but if anyone wants, you can just drop me a private message or just comment on the videos, and I will do so. Okay, so how do we make this? How is the easiest way to do this? I'm going to grab my retry button, go down to on, let me turn this on, make sure that this is my retry button. Yep. Sorry, there it is. Under the on click in the button, we're going to click on add. I'm going to drag the manager into here. I'm going to go down to where it says manager, and I'm going to look for let's try again. And I'm going to do the same thing in the menu. I'm going to open up the menu button, click on there, grab the manager, and choose not a chance in hell. There we go. So that is the quickest way that I've found to be able to. You can add a listener, all that kind of stuff, but that's the quickest way to get buttons working inside of Unity. Just using the standard Unity events to call stuff, which is really nice. Okay, we're going to stop. I hit the retry. Games restarts. I hit this one, and I click here. It says on my way back to the menu, so that works. And we can hit retry and see if the saving works. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go all the way to the end to grab all the coins, and now we have the high score. So we can, again, like I said, we can have a clear high score button somewhere in there here if we want. I'm going to reset, clear all the player press, and I'm going to just make sure I hit the first time to see if the player press have been actually cleared out. There we go, they have. Let's retry and grab 1 and hit it. 20, let's go. Let's go here, hit the next one. There we go, that is working really well. So I'm going to hit here, and you can compare my score to the high score. So everything is working. That's about it. So see you in the next video. Until I see you again, hopefully this has been helpful. It's a very basic manager script, nothing fancy, nothing to write home about, but it does what it needs to do. It does everything that you want from a save. And we're using standard Unity player press, which is nice for smaller projects, but when you go bigger, you're going to want to have a more robust saving and loading system, something like converting into a JSON file or a binary file and then saving externally. But besides that, this works perfectly fine for these kind of games. Okay, so until I see you again, please be safe and take care of yourselves. Cheers, guys.